that we try to say that everyone is equal, and it makes no difference what your background is. So when we do research, there's many opinions from where this starts. Well, the Torah, as you see here in the portion of Bereshit, it speaks about the beginning of the creation. It says Hashem created male and female. Well, if you see, and we were all created in the image of God. So, but the bottom line is there's differences. Everyone has different skills, different opportunities, and even spiritually, we all have differences. So how could we really say, well, of course, we know we're all created in the image of God, but how is it possible that we're all created in the image of God, and at the same time, we're all equal? And on the other hand, we're all created in the image of God, but we all have differences. We all have different opinions. We each have different things, different ideas. Are all our values equal? Aren't there people that have different values than others? And if the answer is yes, how does this concept of being equal give the ability for us to have different roles? Even if there's different roles, and we each play different roles in different things. So we have to understand today, how is it possible to be equal in many ways, as we know, and then we each have a different role. So let's explore the discussion of the Torah portion with Korach. And let's try to understand this. You know, Moshe is the leader of the Jewish people. He helped the Jewish people get out of Egypt, the plagues, the splitting of the sea, and all the great things that happened when the Jewish people left Egypt. Moshe was our very fine leader. He went up to the mountain to receive the tablets. He gave us the food from heaven. You know, he helped God give us the food from heaven, the water, and he led us out of Egypt with compassion in every single circumstances. Now, Korach was displeased with this. He didn't like the idea that Moshe, our leader, is having so much power. He said Moses is not a good man. The fact that Moses is the leader, he wanted to stop Moses' leadership. He didn't like it. He did not appreciate Moshe as our leader. So, what did he do? Okay, so we have here so this is what Moses did in text number 2a. Moses decided, I do not like this leader, Moshe Rabbeinu. So what he did was as follows. Korach was a very honorable man, by all means. He was a very wealthy man, a very special man. He gathered all the men and said, his concept was basically, we're all equal. We all received the Torah from God. We all have this special concept And what makes you more special than us? And we all know his end, his terrible end, his failure. Everyone was killed. And Hashem did not kill them with a regular death, but he swallowed them up into the ground. And his 250 men that were with him, the 250 men that were with him, they ended up getting burnt to death. Okay, so that's the history of Korach. We see here in text number 2b, text number 2b, the fire went out from heaven. And our question is as follows. Korach and his 250 men had different types of death. One was swallowed up into the ground, and the other one had a death of being burned to death. Why did Hashem choose to do two different deaths? Why didn't he do an equal death to everyone? Either swallow them all up into the ground or burn them all to death. And it's known that Hashem does measure for measure. You know, it says if you do something, God forbid, Hashem might punish the person measure for measure. Here we see that there was something different. What does Korach's rebelling against Moshe have to do with swallowing him up into the ground? What does it have to do with burning them to death? So it seems to be random deaths. As the commentaries ask here in commentaries discuss in text number 3, and then in text number 4, asking this question. Well, the goal of Korach was he wanted to make a banner, very dangerous banner, that we're all equal. Let's understand what Korach was trying to bring out. Text number 5, starting with this point. Korach basically said, this whole nation is holy, and God is among us all. So why should you rise above the congregation? He didn't like that. The goal of Korach was he refused to acknowledge that there's differences amongst the Jewish people. There are some that are holier and some that are less. What and why did Korach go this direction? Why was he so convinced to go this direction? We're not talking about a fool. We're actually talking about a very intelligent man. As we see here in text number 6, the problem of Korach. He made machloket. He wanted to make differences. He wanted to make an argument. It says in the Talmud, anytime someone has an argument, it's like Korach. But really, what did Korach do so bad? What was so terrible about his behavior? As the Rebbe asks here in text number 7. Well, the answer is as follows. Moses told Korach, in the morning, you will find out the answer. You see the word boker in text number 8a. Of course, we all know morning means he'll find it out tomorrow morning, but there's a play on the words here. Literally, it means tomorrow morning. What Moshe was saying is that Hashem created boundaries in his world. And just like you cannot change the boundaries that Hashem made. If now it's dark, it's dark. If it's going to turn light, it's light. You cannot make that it should be light or dark all the time. Hashem created a 24-hour period in most places, under most circumstances, that it has day and night. And that's the limitation that Hashem made in the world. Then there's limitation amongst people. Just like the responsibility of Jewish people. Each one has their responsibility. Aaron is the Kohen, and he's separate from everyone else. And this is what Moshe was saying, as the Rashi explains in text number 8b. Moshe was saying, just like there's day and night, so too there's differences in people. There's limitations that were created. Hashem created these limitations with a purpose. So, if everyone is going to look for the responsibility of their friend and do what their friend is supposed to be doing, it's going to create confusion, and it's not going to allow the world to properly function. You have your responsibility, I have my responsibility, your roofer has his responsibility, and your lawyer has his or her responsibility. On the surface, all this looks pretty straightforward. Korach stepped out of his line. He demanded too much for himself. And Moses explained how there's limitations. Seems fine. But there's something much deeper here. And let's try to understand what Moses meant and what Korach was trying to say. And then we'll understand what's the punishment, what's the sin, and what's the punishment. The Medrash says here something very interesting. If you look here in the Medrash, it says in text number 9, God created the world with 10 sayings. He uttered 10 different words, and he created the world. Obviously, 10 doesn't mean limited to 10. It means 10, and then those 10 could end up to 1,000 different words. It's like if you take the number 1 through 10, you can end up with an unlimited amount of numbers by adding and subtracting numbers and so on and so forth. Why didn't Hashem create the world with 1 udder? He could have done that. What does he need 10 for? But he chose to do it with 10. If he would have, he wanted the world to have an abundance. If he would created the world with 1 udder, with 1 word, the entire world would reflect Hashem's singular. And the whole world would be 1. But he did not want. Hashem wanted there should be 10, which means there's infinite words and letters. And this gives the ability to create unlimited in this world. So if he only created 1 udder, then everything would be united with Hashem. He didn't want that. He wanted there to be separate things, and then they become united. And this is what Korach said. Korach basically said, he was a visionary. He saw things above the world. He saw them on a little of a higher level. Korach was actually very holy. He saw them on a much deeper level. And he looked at it and he wanted to reach the highest level where everything is united. So let's explain this, as we see here in this chart of the 4 different ways. Let's explain what was happening here. There's 4 ways to deal with the barriers and different opinions. You know, you clash maybe with your friend. You might clash sometimes with a good friend, maybe with your spouse, maybe with your children, maybe with your parents or a sibling or a coworker. There's many ways how to go about this concept of clashing, how to deal with it. So, the first way to deal with it is to tolerate and respect each other. Each one has his place. Okay. You're in your spot, I'm in my spot, and we respect each other. Another way to deal with it is to impact and influence the other to change or to go your direction and somehow get along, but not so much in the way of respect. The third way is you both come together. So let's say you have two pizza shops and you're both arguing, so you decide, okay, we'll open one big pizza shop. That's getting along. And you're both accomplishing one goal. Or if you go to the core of the problem, which then, in the core, we're all really one. So that's really reaching an extremely high level. That's much higher and much deeper. So okay, so let's try to figure out what these four specific levels are. So in general, you have to look at it. The world is split into three. Olam, which is space. Shana, which is time. Nefesh, which is the individual, which is the human. Everything in this world has three things: time, space, and the individual. So just like in physical, there's time, space, and the individual, so too in the spiritual world, there's these three things. The Medrash says that there's 10 different levels of holiness. In text number 10, you see the details. In Israel, there's 10 different holiness levels in Israel. There's the highest, which is the Holy of Holies, and then there's Jerusalem, and then there's in the Holy Temple itself many levels. Finally, till you get to the lowest level of holiness, which lies in certain places in Israel because it's not the Holy Temple. Now, then there's time. Think about life. We have different times. We have Shabbos. We have weekdays. We have Yom Tov. We have Chol HaMoed. And finally, we have Yom Kippur. Then we have people. The individual, as you see here in the slide. You have Kohanim. You have Levites. You have Israelites. You have high priests. And then amongst us, there's many different levels. There's wood choppers. There's water carriers. There is leaders. We're all split in many different levels. Rightfully so. That's what makes us complete. Now, in the most basic level, unity could be understood, everyone in their level. So if I don't step over my boundaries and I don't steal place from others, and spiritually what it means is you understand that you have your space and your mission. And if everyone sticks to their role, the overall plan could be accomplished. So this is the first idea. Okay, you're the water carrier. The next guy is the wood chopper. Guess what? If the water carrier decides he wants to be a wood chopper, there won't be any water carrier anymore. No one will have water. It's very simple. It's a simple idea. If the doctor decides he wants to become a lawyer and he's the only doctor in town, then there won't be a doctor anymore, and vice versa. So we each agree to be in our space. So in other words, we're all different, but we can respect each other. And everyone contributes something to the general mission. That's the first level. I do this, you do that, and we agree that each of us do what we do. And that's it. And we each do it the way we should be doing it. Now, then, there's another concept when two people complement each other. It's not that each one is in his own existence, but each one complements the second one. For instance, the Kohanim, they work in the temple, they help us, they work for us, they bless us. So they're complementing us. They're not alone. And the same thing applies, so that's humans. The same thing applies in place in the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple is a holy place, but guess what? It says the windows were made in a way where it would shine out to the rest of the world, not only physically, but also spiritually. And then the same thing is in days in the week, as you see in the Zohar, quoted here in text number 11, that there's the concept, Shabbat, of course, Shabbat's higher than the whole week, but it blesses the rest of the week. So that's again the idea of bringing the holiness into the rest of the week. So we see whether it's space, time, or humans, each one is giving from his specific level to others. So limitations are important, but it has to be in a way of means to connect one to the next. Then there is the highest level of all of this. Not only you influence others, but you're not complete without someone else. The Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, explained, it's like the body of a person. Each limb has his mission that the other limb does not have. Your legs have a mission. Your head has a mission. But guess what? You can't have a complete body without a leg, God forbid. If you don't have a leg, it's terrible. If you don't have an arm, God forbid. The body is complete when you have an entire body. If you have a leg, now you can walk to shul. Now you can play soccer. Whatever it takes. Not only each limb completes the other one, but it's intertwined with each other and it makes it complete. And therefore you can inject a vaccine in the arm and it will make the rest of the body complete because it's all connected. As the Rebbe explains here in text number 12. This is about humans. We complete each other. And the same thing is in space. In the Holy Temple, there's 10 different levels of holiness. But each one completes the next. Shabbat. Can't have a complete year. If the whole year is Shabbat, then it's not considered a year. A year means you have Shabbos, you have Friday, and you have Sunday, and Monday, and Tuesday, and you have the whole week. That completes the week. And the same thing is with humans. If you have one without the other, we're not complete. In other words, there's two levels of unity. There's working on our differences and honoring each other, or we join each other to a common goal. That is a much higher level. We work with each other to get to a common goal. But there's something much deeper and more essential than this level of unity. It's called the unity that comes from Hashem himself. This is the highest level possible. All the unities we spoke about, it's still plural. There's me and you, and we're becoming united. When we reach the complete unity, it's only singular. That's the only thing that exists. For instance, the sun is shining down through many different cracks in many different homes in many different levels. Nobody asks to try to figure out how the sun goes into all those cracks and all those levels. All you know is that there's one sun. It's clear in your mind that there's one sun. Hashem is definitely one. But when he created the world, he created many different things. We don't really see the unity of Hashem. But when you go to the core, you know that there's one, even though there's so much. For instance, the Holy of Holies, the holiest place in the world. So if you walked into the Holy of Holies, the dimension of the Holy of Holies was 20 amot, which is 20 cubic feet by 20. The ark was 2 by 2. Now, if you put the ark in the middle and you measure on this side and this side, it should be around 9 cubic feet because the ark is taking up the space in the middle. Miraculously, when you measured on this side of the ark, it was 10. This side of the ark was 10. That's impossible because the ark took up space. But the Holy of Holies was the oneness of God that things didn't make sense there because it was complete unity. There was no separations. It was the oneness of Hashem. Then that's the unity in space. The unity in time was the holiest day of the year. In the holiest place in the world, one person entered to one day and one place. That's it. Holy of Holies was the only holy place. Yom Kippur was the only holiest day of the year. And the holy man, Kohen Gadol, entered into the Holy of Holies. So we seem to be different, yet at our core, we are one. This is the way it really is in our core. So the point is as follows. Now we understand what Korach was trying to accomplish. Korach was basically trying to say, as you see here in the text, Moshe told him we have only one God and one Torah and one Mizbeach and one Kohen Gadol. But this is what Korach wanted to do. Korach said as follows. I want to reach the highest level of unity. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. I want to go to the ultimate highest level. But he made a big mistake because this level is so deep. You cannot feel it today. It's the unity of Hashem, the oneness that he was trying to reach. But we as humans cannot reach that level possible. We cannot reach that level today. It's way too high. So even though Korach's perception was right, and that's how the concept is in the core, but it's very possible. It's very possible that by doing this, you mess things up, as we're going to say in a moment. Now we cannot receive this level. Now it won't bring peace. It will bring more arguments. We cannot we have no way of accessing this level today. It's impossible to reach such a level in today's day and age. On the contrary, it will become worse. If you try to be who you're not, one out of two things could happen. Or your soul will become extremely low, or you will become extremely high. But you will go so high beyond your consciousness. And you won't be able to handle it. The soul is split into two. There's the lofty level of the soul, which is in heaven, and then there's the level that comes down into the physical world. We cannot reach this higher level today. We will become split personalities. It won't work. Korach and his 250 men had two different ideas. Korach ended up falling low, and that's why he fell in the pit. His 250 men ended up getting burnt. When you burn something, most of it goes up in ash. Most of it goes up in heaven, but ashes end up staying down on the bottom. What's left over? And this was the difference between Korach and his 250 men. Korach completely messed up. He fell in the pit. It was completely ruined. There was nothing he could do about it. But when it came to the 250 men, part of them actually got uplifted. Part of them went up to a higher level. But the other part of them ended up getting lowered down. Now, let's conclude with something very practical. From the story of Korach, we learn, don't blur our limitations. To blur our limitations and our separations is against God. It brings to friction and division. If you put water and fire together, the fire will burn out. But if you take fire and you put a pot of water on top of it, the water will cook pleasantly and you will have hot water. If there's limitations and everyone understands that he has his role, he has his role to achieve, then there will be true peace. Everyone has a different path than the next person. If everyone does his mission the way he should, it will be better for everyone. You know, if you've always wanted to do something and then you force your child to do it because you regret you didn't do it, that's the worst thing you can do to your child because they don't necessarily want to do what you're forcing upon them. If a boss is micromanaging and not allowing his employees to do their job, he will fail and they will fail. You do your job as a boss, which is supervising. Parents have to honor the children as each child as an individual, recognizing their natural limitations that God gave into this world. Everyone has to feel what his role is. If you try to do everything, you will fail completely. Stick to your role. When Mashiach comes, we'll be able to leave our limitations. We'll be able to go away from our limitations that we have, which is separation between everyone else. But when today we don't have the ability to have complete unity. When Mashiach comes, it says you'll be able to learn from Hashem himself. I won't have to teach you. You won't have to teach your friend. Everyone will be equal. Of course, there'll be higher tzaddikim and a higher level, but the biggest struggle we're having today is that we're trying to be what we are not. And that's why people are struggling emotionally, because they're trying to be something that they are not. If you're a singer, that means you're a singer and stick to being a singer. If you are a doctor, that means you're good in being a doctor, and so on and so forth. So this is the lesson we take here from Korach. Of course, there's unity, but on some levels, there's separation, meaning there's differences. Of course, we complement each other, and that's great, but we have to know our differences and appreciate that we are different than everyone else. So don't try to be like someone else. Try to be your best and who you are. Any questions?
Rabbi, I had a question, and it
Yes,
probably
Steve.
has nothing to do with. So I was just, you said a couple of things that made me think of Genesis, when God said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, have dominion over fish of the sea and over birds of the air and every other living thing that moves. But he never said dominion over another man, right? So at that point, everything was equal, right? But
You never said what? Sorry?
you have dominion over other people. It was over all living things. It was, people were like equal because you don't have dominion.
Right. But there was no, But the thing is, at that point, it was only him and his wife.
Right. But at that point, there was no slavery, there was no inequality, there were no levels. Everybody's equal, right?
Right.
And somehow it got more complicated. But from the start, Genesis, it was like there was nothing about man over man or anything. It was just over other creatures. And then it got more complicated. So it's just very interesting. Like,
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, but you know, the thing is, even leaders like rabbis or teachers, it's very important that they realize that, of course, they have power over, not power, but, you know, they have maybe they're more knowledgeable than others, but it's very important that they treat people with respect, not controlling. It's not communism. It's right. Trying to influence and inspire others in a very peaceful, meaningful way.
But that seems to be implied in Genesis because there was nothing about man. It was only about you have dominion over everything else. So the implication is everybody else is equal. And then
that's a very interesting point, actually. Yeah.
Because there's nothing about treat people, you know, all the negative things you were saying, it's not in Genesis. He thought maybe man would be fine, and then things weren't. So I just thought that was kind of interesting when you.
Intellect that animals have, or they're, you know, like dogs are able to smell when there's drugs or things that humans, of course, but I'm talking about inventing an intellect that humans have. But Hashem originally created us even greater than that, like, you know, like close to God, godlike. And we ate, you know, Adam ate from the tree and you messed up with that. So it was unfortunate. But at the same time, we're partners in the creation of the world. We get to complete the world's faults. All right. Sei gesund. Thank you for coming on. Have a good evening.